This is another video for Vicky Marie, all her wonderful subscribers and members in relation to the Samantha Murphy case. Of course, for anyone interested in the Samantha Murphy case. So, I commented in my last Samantha Murphy video that I would head out to the state forest near me and do a quick video of the surroundings to give you an idea of what it was like. So I thought that while I was giving a bit of the narrative, I'd actually share some of the drive with you. So the road that I'm going along right now is a road that runs through state forest pretty much. There are private properties dotted along the place, but they're few and far between. Mostly it's just state forest either side of the road. Now, this is actually really, really close to one of the main centres in Bendigo. You wouldn't know it. The entire time that I was on this road, I saw one vehicle, and you'll see where I caught up with that vehicle later because you can see the dust flying up behind it once I hit the dirt road. But despite being fairly close to shops and schools and everything else, you can see that this is pretty isolated. Now, just going with that, when you talk about Victoria, the population, now size-wise, we're the smallest state, I believe. Canberra doesn't count because that's a capital territory, not a state. But as far as states go, we are the smallest state size-wise. The population in Victoria, I looked up all these figures for you. The population in Victoria is round about 6.9 million people. And as far as the distribution of the population, that equates to one person per 23.5 kilometres, or one person per 15.5 miles. And you have to factor in also that 70% of our population in Victoria live in Melbourne, so around the capital city. So once you start getting away from the population centres, you get more of this. In terms of state forests, there is 8 million hectares of public land in Victoria. And within that 8 million hectares of public land, there is 3.1 million hectares of state forest. So this is what a lot of Victoria looks like. This is why it's like a needle in a haystack for Victoria Police to find Samantha. It's not an easy task. And when you live somewhere like Ballarat, then you're quite accustomed to making a quick dash down to Melbourne. It's only a 2-hour drive. So people in these regional areas will think nothing of a quick dash down to Melbourne and back in a day, doing, a 4-hour round trip. So while at the moment they're focusing very heavily in the Ballarat area, and there's so much state forest around the Ballarat area, let's be realistic about this too. This is a young man who his father played football, he played football, and he's also worked as an electrician. He will have travelled to multiple different areas to play football. He will have travelled around heaps in his electrician work. So chances are that he's not worried about going further out. And chances are that he knows of a lot more places than what state police are giving him credit for. I will point out, however, and I'd love to know if someone can tell me if they seized his vehicle, because there is a lot of vehicle forensics that can be done. I don't know the time frame that it takes to do that, and perhaps that was one of the bits of intel that police had when they went and did their search. But his vehicle would be fairly new. It would have what they call it a black box, a vehicle black box. And the vehicle forensics that can be done are phenomenal. They can access all GPS data. They can access what devices were connected to that vehicle. Not only that, but they can access the data from the devices that were connected to that vehicle. They can also access information with regards to ignition cycles. So how long the car was on for at any one time, how long it was turned off for in between ignition cycles, what distance it travelled in between ignition cycles, how many passengers were in the car at any given amount of time. So there is actually a video in my playlist connected to the Kiely Rodni case, and it's a fairly recent one that talks about vehicle forensics. So if you are interested and want to learn a little bit more about that, I'll add a link to it at the bottom of this video. But definitely, it's not just about getting data from the phone, but if they have his vehicle, they can get a lot of data from his vehicle. This area that I'm driving through now is a campground just off the side. This is in the state forest, and I didn't want to stop because there's quite a lot of people camping there at the moment, so I just did a quick lap and headed back out again. But it's, you know, it's private, it's secluded. Now, if you look carefully at the sides of the roads in this area, you can already see a bit of what I'm talking about in terms of the ground being super uneven and there being different mounds all over the place. You've got some of that bush grass going on, but at the same time, you still have a lot of the mounds and stuff all over the place. And that's just everywhere. I probably should have pointed that out earlier in the video, but then after going to this campground, I actually went further up the road and just pulled off at one of the many random pull-offs on the side of the road. So I mentioned in my previous video that the state forests are full of tracks that are off-road tracks that have been made by people four-wheel driving. And you can see why. You can see how it is a little bit of a crumbly kind of soil, but at the same time, it's a dry soil. It doesn't get like really boggy because it hasn't got that heavy, loamy kind of thing going on. But if you notice, as I'm driving along here, there are multiple spots where vehicles have basically pulled off to the side of the road. And honestly, the only limitations really are your vehicle. And you'll see that when we get to this area where I stopped, because where I stopped is just a classic pullover area. But when you actually stop and you have a look around, you can see how easily it would be to head further in with a vehicle. And because it is so dry, single vehicle tracks aren't going to be overly obvious, I don't believe. So this is the area that I was telling you about. Now I've done a video while I walk around, and I'm actually going to leave the sound on with that part of the video, because all you will hear is me walking around, birds in the background, and a brief bit of sound of, I think it was a helicopter flew over while I was there. But just have a look at all the different mounds, the ruts. Hopefully, I'm not sure if this video really does show it off as well, but hopefully you can see also how easy it would be to slip over into this pullover area. This isn't actually any kind of designated public area. This is just a bit off the side of the road where I managed to pull in with my car, and now I've walked a few metres in. And you can see there's nobody around. And there's mounds, rough soil. Some areas you get the debris. But this is what police are contending with, searching for Samantha. 3.1 million hectares of state forest. And we don't necessarily know. They hopefully know how far that Patrick went in his vehicle. But you can see why it is such a hard task.